All right, we are live back on the Andre Duke Show with Carter Smith. Carter, how you doing, man?
Good, man. Good. It's been a good week so far. Just got Wednesday hump day, so halfway through the week. Only got to work Thursday. I took Friday off because obviously you're coming to Columbus. It's a big event. We got that live show going on at Yogi's. So just really looking forward to that. Looking forward to finishing out the week strong and just it's a lot of moving parts in athletics and sports all the time. So it's been a fun week, man. How about you?
Uh, Good to hear. Good to hear. Yeah, gearing up, getting ready to come down to Columbus for the live show with Menace to Sports. It's always a good time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And if anybody doesn't know, Friday live show with Menace to Sports going to be at Yogi's on Hard Road. Doors open at 11 a.m. and it's gonna fill up quick. This is going to be the biggest live show they've done. With it being the day before the spring game, I already know a bunch of people that are coming in from out of town for it. So get there early. Show starts at noon, and then we'll be hanging out, enjoying some cocktails and some beverages the whole time. So come say what's up to Duke and I.
Yes, I second that, and we will be there. Uh, Also, a side note here: did you see Chris's eclipse glasses?
Yeah, I did see that. Good for him. Just being safe at all times. You never know when that eclipse might just show up indoors, and you might need them. So always err on the side of caution, and never want to mess up your eyes. I know a few people that were looking directly at it, and everything seems to be fine, but I didn't do that. It looked like it would hurt.
Uh, I partook in the eclipse a little bit. Um, when it comes to the eclipse, don't believe the hype.
I
So
don't know, man. I thought it was pretty cool. I mean, it was legit. Like I was outside when it went to the total eclipse, and it got pretty dark. Street lights came on. Like once in a lifetime thing. Not going to happen again here until 2099. And given my lifestyle and things like that, I doubt I'm around for that.
yeah, it's just yeah, the eclipse was cool for the kids.
Yeah, for sure.
I will
My
say
kids
that.
loved it.
My son that is 4 years old, he's like, I don't was the. It's just dark, and then it's like, hey man, it's a once in a lifetime experience. So,
Yeah,
uh, soak it in. So,
yeah, for sure.
with that being said, let's get the show started.
Sounds good,
Uh,
man. Let's get it rolling.
First topic of the day is UConn wins a national championship and takes down the mighty Purdue Boilermakers.
Yeah, man. I watched some of it. I didn't watch all of it. It got pretty boring pretty quick in the second half. Um, it, it, UConn, man. What can you say? Back to back national championships. Dan Hurley has that program humming. I mean, they were clearly the best team all throughout March. They went into the tournament hot and they stayed hot the whole time. I'll give credit. I know I was on this podcast towards the beginning of March Madness, telling everybody Purdue was going to be out in the second round. Clearly, that was wrong. Purdue and Zach Edey's unathletic ass got it done. They got all the way to the championship game and then did what Purdue does best and kind of choked. But good for UConn. Purdue can say they got there. They avenged their 16 seed loss the year before by going all the way to the Natty. That's about as close as a Big Ten team's going to get, I think.
Right, and I think Matt Painter has reached his ceiling maybe at Purdue. I think that is possibly as good as it's going to get. Um,
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, that's a pretty damn good ceiling though if you're playing for a natty, right? Like, I mean, that's good for them. It's good for the program. I know they have decent pieces coming back. I think they'll still be a good team next year. I know that number 4, I forget his name, but he was the athletic big man. I believe he's coming back, and I think Purdue is still going to be one of the best teams in the Big Ten next year and be able to make another run at it. I don't think they'll get all the way there. They'll probably be a Sweet 16 team or something like that. But, I believe Matt Painter is the perfect guy for that job. He's doing a great job. He's consistently winning the Big Ten or in contention for it. I don't think Purdue's the type of program where you're going to be competing for national championships year in and year out. I don't know if it ever has been.
Right. And with that being said, I think Purdue's a hard sell in recruiting. I don't know if you've ever been to West Lafayette, but
I have.
it's not a desired choice in
No, yeah.
Indiana. Some people call it the armpit of the state.
Yeah, I
Just
mean, honestly, I've been to almost every Big Ten program, their campus and their football stadium at least. Obviously, I haven't been to like Washington and Oregon and those new ones, but all the original ones, and I've been to Maryland and things like that. I would have to say Purdue's probably at the bottom, or at least near the bottom of my choices of places to go. I would much rather go to East Lansing, Ann Arbor, with Madison. Heck, I'd even rather go to let's see, Iowa. I mean, all of them are better than Purdue. I think Illinois is probably in that conversation, although that's at least not too far from Chicago. You can get to somewhere cool in a little bit.
right. So you're saying the game day atmosphere is better than Indiana has a better game day atmosphere than Purdue?
I don't know about atmosphere. I think they're pretty comparable. Indiana's terrible. I mean, it's cool when you go there for an Ohio State game because it's a home game for Ohio State. There's a million Buckeye fans all around. But I think Indiana's campus is better overall, just like the area. And I had a lot more fun at Indiana than I did at Purdue.
Right on, right on. I can't argue that because I think going down to Bloomington's more enjoyable than going over to West Lafayette, just for the simple fact
Oh,
of
for sure.
the campus is set up better, the parking's better. There's more stuff to do after the game, and also you it just Purdue's a nightmare. But I
Yeah,
digress.
I
Uh,
agree.
moving on. Who are you most interested to see in the upcoming Ohio State spring game?
Um, I mean, if I had to pick one player, probably Jeremiah Smith. I think he's going to show out and have a day. I've seen clips every single day. You're seeing clips of this dude just absolutely destroying DBs during spring practice. He's an absolute man as an 18-year-old coming into college. But I'm not super interested in seeing any particular person. I just want to see the quarterbacks, all of them. I want to see all of them. I want to see how they look. Now that we know the format, which I hate the format, but it is what it is. They're just trying to get, what they can, best on best, offense, defense, all that, so that they can get a look at everybody and try to put a decent show on for the fans. But I much preferred it when they'd split up the team, scarlet and gray. You'd have, some of the ones on each team, and I think that was more fun. But I think the only thing people care about in this game is how do the quarterbacks look. I want to know what Devin Brown looks like out there, throwing deep balls, throwing passes, hitting his mark, putting the ball on him. Same thing with Will Howard. Everybody, Will Howard's a little bit of an unknown. I watched some film of him last night and broke it down and really paid attention. And the dude's got a good arm. His ball placement was pretty good the entire game. I watched the Texas game of Kansas State versus Texas. Obviously, the biggest thing that jumped out to you was the people around him were just Kansas State level athletes. So I want to see what Will Howard looks like when you give him some elite athletes. Can he elevate his game to that next level that makes him able to be an elite quarterback in college football? I don't know if he can. And the fact that he hasn't separated himself from Devin Brown at this point in the spring doesn't lead me to believe that he has yet. But he's also only 10 on Saturday. He'll be 14 practices in. That's it. So, he's had to learn a new offense. He's had to adjust to a new quarterbacks coach. And he's competing every day with Devin Brown and Julian Sain. And so we'll see. I'm just excited to see what it looks like, man. I've been itching for football. I've been watching the UFL, just trying to get a taste of it, and that's garbage football, honestly. But It's I'm excited. I'm gonna watch it. I don't think I'll be able to go to the game. My daughter has a soccer game at 10:30 and then another one at noon, so I'll have to be kind of on that. But then it's gonna be on Big Boy Fox with Urban and Brady Quinn and Joel Klatt, announcing it. So I'll be watching it. I'll be keeping an eye on the quarterback specifically and see how that defensive line looks and if the offensive line can hold up.
And another caveat about Saturday is too, that is a huge sports day. We have UFC 300 that night. The Masters is
Yeah.
going on, and the Ohio State spring game. So, if you're a sports fan, that's a great day to consume sports. And also, I'm curious to in the spring game to see what what the defense is going to look like. I don't know how many snaps CJ Hicks is going to get. He's a guy that's on my radar that you've heard the hype for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and
Well, yeah, and
now
all the reports coming out of spring are that he's taken all the reps at one for the will linebacker position. So if that's the case, I want to see him. And what do they do with Sonny Styles? Are they going to roll out with C.J. Hicks and Sonny Styles as their two main linebackers, or are they going to rotate Sonny at other positions? Because Sonny Styles has to be on the field. He's too good to just not put out there, even if C.J. Hicks is finally taking the leap where he knows the defense. I know C.J. Hicks is a freak athlete and he needs to be on the field, but so is Sonny Styles. So that'll be interesting for me as well. How do the linebackers look, especially with full-time coach James Laurinaitis' first spring game? He has his guys ready, or does he have his guys ready? And what is that rotation like? Are they rotating three guys? Are they playing two and one's sitting? Is Sonny rotating in at kind of a safety position? Like I'm very interested in that dynamic as well. There's only 11 spots on the field, and Sonny Styles can play a lot of them, but you got to put them in there somewhere, and they have a bunch of dudes at all the positions.
right. And also, I'm interested to see what Aaron Nolan looks like, because I think he's going to get a lot of snaps. Lincoln Keenholz and Julian Sand, because I think at the quarterback position, I hate to stir controversy before it starts, but Aaron Nolan, Julian Sand, and Lincoln Keenholz are all within 1 year apart, and I think we got a potential controversy here brewing, because somebody you can only play one.
Right. Yeah.
And
I think it's pretty cut and dry that it's either going to be Devin or Will that's going to start this year, and whoever it is. And then the thing is if it's Devin, well, that's 2 years, because he can't leave after this year, so he's going to be here again next year. And if he's the starter this year, he's probably going to be the starter next year. So now you're talking about 2 years of that, and then you got Lincoln, Air, and Julian. They're going to have to sit for 2 years before they play, and Lincoln's already burnt a year. Well, I guess he probably redshirted, right? So he has 4 years eligibility still. But I think, and I'm not breaking news here because I don't know this to be fact, but I've seen reports and I've heard rumors. I think there's a strong possibility Lincoln transfers when this portal opens. I believe he's I'm not going to say a lock, but I've heard a lot of buzz around him going to Iowa, which would fit in really well with what he's from West Dakota or North Dakota, South Dakota, one of the Dakotas. And so it would make sense for him to kind of go and explore other options, because when they brought him in, they knew he was going to be a project. He was a 3-year project. We're going into year 2, and we just brought in 2 guys that are a year younger that I believe are going to surpass him. So as much as he loves Ohio State and wants to be a Buckeye, unless you can find him another position on the field, I don't see him getting on the field as a quarterback.
You mentioned Iowa. I think Lincoln Keenholz would fit in well at Boise, because I know Boise and Wyoming put a lot of guys in the NFL. Being out west, not a lot of people in the Midwest talk about them, but they dominate recruiting out there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, those would be great fits.
And I would not rule out the Utah Utes as a potential landing spot. as well. Just one of those top-notch programs out west. I haven't looked and seen who came up second on Lincoln's recruiting, which I think that is a big thing, because now normally the team that finishes second, like Caleb Downs,
Yeah.
the portal opens, they end up there anyway. So
Yeah, that's the leader in the clubhouse when they enter the portal, right? They were obviously very interested in going there if they were their second choice, and then things change at their first choice, and it's kind of like if you're choosing between two girls, right? And you choose one, and things start to sour. Maybe the relationship's not going so well. All of a sudden, that other girl's starting to look real good. You know, she's been in the gym, she's been working out. You're like, damn, I could probably leave this one and get with that one. And you know, grass is always greener, right? Is what they say. Well, we'll see if it is for Lincoln, but I think he's going to get buried on this depth chart if he sticks around for too long.
right, and I not to change the topic too much, but we just got breaking news: arrest warrant issued for Rashid Rice.
Ooh, well,
He's
I mean that makes sense. You know, he was driving crazy fast, 100 and whatever miles an hour, and hit somebody and fled the scene. So that's you play stupid games, you win dumb prizes, right? So I'm not shocked by that at all. Um, I don't know enough details about what went on and what the investigations looked like or anything like that to speculate on what the punishment might be. But I'm sure there will be some sort of punishment, both from the legal side of things and the NFL. You know, probably a suspension at least. And then, yeah, depending on, luckily, I don't think anybody was injured. I don't think, you know, I know nobody was killed. So there's a chance that it ends up being just kind of a, you know, traffic violation, a pretty significant one. I believe reckless driving and fleeing from police is a felony. So that would be a pretty significant charge. Now, I don't know. Again, I don't know the investigation, what facts they have to charge him with what, because there's a lot of ways to get out of that or plea it down or do things if you have good lawyers to make it not as significant. But you know, that's just these young guys with a ton of money, man. That sometimes you give the wrong one too much money and they do stupid things. That's just part of it.
right, and again, we are not a legal show.
No, not at all.
We're just a couple of guys talking sports. We're just giving educated opinions.
Yeah, I'm not a lawyer. I just play one on a podcast.
Yes, yes, yeah. Speaking of attorneys, moving on to the University of Notre Dame. What I wrote up in the notes is the Notre Dame athletic director is bullish about them staying independent, and they have positioned themselves in the right way to stay fully independent going forward.
Yeah, I saw these comments from the new athletic director, Pete Bevacqua, whatever, a couple days ago, and it really just gives you some insight into Notre Dame's mindset, and they believe what they're saying. And I don't. And I went through the numbers they were putting out there, and I looked at everything, and in a lot of ways, he's right. It's never been better to be independent right now for Notre Dame. Now, a lot of schools can't handle that because they don't have Notre Dame's fan base, they don't have Notre Dame's name, and they don't have the history, right? But when you look at the numbers, so any team that is an independent team will get $12 million from the CFP every year. Now, if you make the college football playoff as an independent, you get an additional $6 million, which will bump it up to $18 million, which is right in line. It's more than what you get as an ACC school, more than what you get as a Big 12 school, and it's just below the Big 10 and SEC. So the numbers that they're getting from the CFP is right in line with what they want. I mean, they're getting more than most of the conferences out there, and they believe that they're going to be a CFP team every year. And the good thing is that payment doesn't change if they go from 12 to 14 or 16 teams. So they would be getting that no matter what. And I rightfully believe Notre Dame should be considered a top 12 to 15 program every single year if they have the coach in place and they do what they should do, which is win a lot of games because they don't have to play the gauntlet of schedule that they do in the SEC and Big Ten. And they're going to get their ACC payout in every other sport except hockey, which I believe they're a Big Ten school in hockey. I don't know. They get treated like the prom queen, getting courted by all these conferences consistently. And the ACC seems very content having Notre Dame's brand and name associated with their conference in any way possible. So when you look at the TV deal they have in place with NBC, the share of revenue they get from the ACC network and ACC affiliation with ESPN, plus what they're getting from the CFP, they're making, I mean, they're not making as much as Ohio State or, the Big Ten schools, but they aren't far off. They're making far more than ACC schools and far more than Big 12 schools. So in some ways, he's right. That they're positioned well. They have the name recognition. They have the deal with NBC. The other thing is their current AD was the chairman of NBC Sports for the past 3 years. So that relationship with NBC is going to be just fine. That's not going anywhere. And it's just a old school mentality that they keep updating with the times. So they keep putting themselves in a position to earn money and to do what they need to do to stay relevant. And I like a lot of the comments. And he said he believes in Marcus Freeman. He likes him as a coach. And he said, we've positioned ourselves not only to stay relevant, but ultimately, we want to win a national championship. And we don't want to win it. We need to win a national championship. And so he knows and he understands. And you're seeing this across the board with ADs all across college sports, where they're finally putting the emphasis on football that some of these schools have been for decades. Because before, when it was all, there wasn't NIL, there wasn't transfer portal, there wasn't the CFP, it was all, we want a million sports, we want to be the biggest athletic department. And now they're like, no, all this is changing. Money's going away from us in those other ones, and we need to focus on making as much money as possible with football, because that's where the money is. And so I don't disagree. I would love for them to join a conference, and I think there's a chance that certain conferences could strong arm them into doing that eventually, but not in the next 5 to 10 years.
The only thing I would push back on is that if the Big Ten wanted to get Notre Dame into the Big Ten conference, that I think they would have to buy out the NBC deal, which I don't
know if they would anymore, because the Big Ten has deals with Fox and NBC now. So I'm sure there's a way they could work it, that they could roll that deal that Notre Dame has into the Big Ten's deal with NBC and just expand what they offer on NBC.
Because I know this much. Michigan and Ohio State are not going to let Notre Dame get paid more from the conference than they do.
Oh, no, absolutely not. No. And if they joined a conference, and that's why they don't join the ACC in football, is because if they join the conference, they're going to get exactly what every other program in the conference gets because of all the different laws and regulations in place. And so that's why they found ways around that with the ACC. I mean, they're an ACC school in every other sport except football and hockey. And I think it's mostly because I don't even know if the ACC plays hockey. But
yeah.
But so they find ways around that, and that's why. And as long as they have that deal with the ACC, and the AD at Notre Dame talked about it a little bit, he's following the Clemson and Florida State stuff very closely, because obviously that will impact the ACC, which will impact Notre Dame. If Florida State and Clemson do get out of the grant of rights and leave the ACC, I know the AD said that he feels strongly about the ACC's future and the path they're on and all this stuff. But if two of your biggest programs in football leave the conference, I think I think Notre Dame starts looking at the Big Ten as like, okay, well, how can we do something similar with the Big Ten? And I don't think the Big Ten will go for it. So I think right now he's smart to stand strong on his independent in football. And I think that unless something drastic changes, which drastic things continue to happen, I think he's going to stay strong in that. But I could see in 5, I think the next CFP deal goes for the next 8 years or something like that. I could see at the end of that, them looking at, okay, now what? because and the only thing, and if the Big Ten really wanted to force them, if the Big Ten wanted them bad enough, which I don't know if the Big Ten really even wants Notre Dame that bad. I think they'd love to have that name and that brand, but I think the Big Ten's very comfortable with what they have and the path they're on. But if they wanted Notre Dame, first thing they could do is say, hey, listen, none of our schools are playing you.
Right. And that's something else that is a problem, because if Clemson and Florida State leave the ACC, we can just say that's cooked turkey. And then and if the SEC takes Clemson, Florida State goes to the Big Ten, or vice versa, however you want to whack it up, you've got big problems if you're Notre Dame, because that leaves you what's left in the ACC, and then that leaves you the Big 12. And I don't know how excited I would be about Notre Dame on Saturday night playing Cincinnati, BYU, Houston.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the Notre Dame fan base would be very, very happy about that either. I think Cincinnati might be an interesting game just because of the regionality of it, and obviously Notre Dame playing Pitt. That's a rivalry game of sorts, so you could get away with that. But you're talking about every single rival that Notre Dame has ever had would be in the Big Ten, pretty much, other than like Navy and some of those other small schools, Stanford. But USC is their main rival. They're now Big Ten. They had a rivalry with Michigan and Michigan State and Purdue, all Big Ten. They had a really good run of intense games in the 90s with Florida State and Miami. So you're talking about a lot of these schools leaving the ACC are schools that they have history with. And then obviously their biggest rival is in the Big Ten already. So if Florida State went to the Big Ten, and let's say Miami went to the SEC, Clemson goes to the Big Ten, whatever, however you shake it out, right? And the SEC and Big Ten collectively, because now they're working together, says, guess what, Notre Dame, you can't play an SEC school, you can't play a Big Ten school. Well, now you're talking about them having to play the Oregon States, Washington States that are going to be independent unless they find a home. You got UConn, who's the only other independent program, and then the rest of the ACC that's trash, And look at that resume. If Notre Dame has to play a schedule without Clemson, Florida State, USC, some of their bigger games, well, now they might go 11-1. And is their strength of schedule, is that strong enough to call them a top 12 team? They didn't really play any of the top teams.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I was steering the conversation towards, because if you have no major players on your schedule, I think the CFP could get together and it would be like a collusion deal to say, all right, Notre Dame can go undefeated. Notre Dame can beat Alabama, and we're going to keep them out just because they don't want to play ball on the conference side of things.
I think yes, I agree with that. If they don't play Alabama, I think if they're able to schedule a big game like Alabama, Michigan, Ohio State, whoever it is, as long as they get 1 or 2 wins against programs that people consider top programs, I think they'll be strong enough to get into the top 14 or whatever. But if you talk about eliminating all Big Ten schools and SEC schools from their schedule, now you're talking about, I mean, Florida State, Clemson, Miami, and let's say North Carolina leave the ACC. Who's the best school in the ACC now? And how often are they going to be ranked top 15? Same with the Big 12. I mean, there's not a lot of great programs in those conferences anymore. And so if you're just playing a schedule with those teams, you're going to, I promise you, the Big Ten and SEC is already doing it with trying to guarantee themselves each 4 spots in the playoffs, trying to build this up to where it's going to just be a Big Ten versus SEC playoff unless people start playing ball and get in conference.
Right, and I feel like the alliance between the Big Ten and the SEC is so tight right now because they want one common thing. They want 2 conferences in a 14-team playoff, our top 7 versus your top 7, and we'll let it
they'll
ride.
do 6-6 because they have to let the ACC and Big 12 champion in because of they'll get hit with all kinds of lawsuits if they try to eliminate those conferences from getting into the playoffs at all. But Notre Dame won't have that benefit unless they join a conference. And so Florida State and those guys leave in a year or two. Maybe Notre Dame goes, okay, well, ACC, let's scrap this grant of rights, go back to ESPN, tell them Notre Dame will join the ACC if we can write up a new deal. And then Notre Dame wins the ACC every year and gets an automatic bid that way. I don't know if that's not the route I want as a Notre Dame fan. I want them to play great competition all year and because I've seen it too many times. They play media. I mean, Notre Dame always has a strong schedule, but it's a strong schedule of middle of the road teams most of the time. They'll play one or two really good teams like a USC or an Ohio State or a Michigan. But they go 12-0, get in the playoff, and they've been playing mediocre competition all year, and they get absolutely waxed by an SEC school. And so I would much rather them get beat a couple times in the year, get in the playoff as a 10 seed, and have played real competition and be ready for that playoff. But, I don't know if that's the route they'll go. At the end of the day, Notre Dame is really smart in how they position themselves, and they will do whatever is going to benefit them the most financially. And they are going to, and they do still, I don't care what anybody tells you, Notre Dame fan base is one of the largest in the country. They have so much power in just athletics and the administrative side of college sports and college, collegiate activities, and that they're always going to have a voice. It's just that voice is going to continue to get smaller, but they're always going to be able to pull strings, and NBC will do whatever they can to get Notre Dame to be successful because they've had a partnership for, 30 years now or whatever, probably longer. And so I think NBC might go to, the ACC and be like, hey, we'll buy out the grant of rights. You guys come play on our network and we'll add Notre Dame to the ACC. Or, but again, it's not going to happen anytime soon. I think the good thing is the CFP is set for, I think, 8 years. So Notre Dame's going to stay independent probably all 8 of those years, unless something major happens. At the end of the 8 years, we'll be right about the time, or I'm trying to think, the ACC grant of rights is till 2030. So 6 years down the road, ACC grant of rights expires. Maybe that's when Notre Dame decides to do something.
Right, and I think a lot of this is going to come down to timing. Is going to be a major factor in it. And last point I have on that topic is sometimes when it comes to this conference realignment, I think some of these teams are going to have some buyer's remorse. Maybe the Washingtons of the world, maybe Oregon if Dan Landing decides to hop out of there. We shall see. Moving on to the next topic, we have John Calipari leaves Kentucky to take the Arkansas job. And before we dive into this, I feel like it was a mutual split for one. And I think both sides are happy about the split. And the Arkansas Edge has pledged $5 million in NIL funds to Arkansas basketball, which is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, let's just have a moment of silence for John Calipari. Okay. Hurts me that he's gone. I love that guy. I'm a huge Kentucky basketball fan. Went to Kentucky when he took the job. I loved watching his teams. I loved watching him coach. I love the way that you just look at the way that his players interact with him after being at Kentucky, and he absolutely is one of the greatest coaches to ever coach basketball. I mean, just great motivator, great chemistry builder, great team builder. Maybe not the best X's and O's guy, but he did wonderful things in his 15 years at Kentucky. The only thing he didn't do was win enough in March. He won the one national title, a couple Final Fours. He just couldn't get it done. And so I know for a fact that he was advised that if he was willing to move on, Kentucky was ready to. I don't know. It was a mutual. I agree. It was a mutual split. They both decided it was time. Um, I don't. I think if you got to talk to John behind closed doors, off the record, I don't think he was ready to. I think he believed that he could still get it done, but I think he also understood that his voice and his message had gone stale over the past 5 years, and the fan base was ready to move on. And he had so much respect and love for Lexington and the fan base and the university that he realized the right thing to do was to go find a different job. He wasn't ready to hang it up. He's not ready to stop coaching. He loves being around young men and molding them and helping them achieve their dreams to the NBA, because you look at it, he had 37 NBA draft picks in his 15 years. That's the 2 point something a year. And I believe first and second rounders. So that's he did that was always the knock on him, was that he wasn't trying to build a program that would win championships. He was trying to build a program that would put players in the league. And sometimes that worked out to where his teams were really good and they'd make runs, but it didn't work out anymore. And so, I hate to see him go, but it was a good run. I'm happy for him. He took a $1.5 million pay cut to go coach at Arkansas. He's still making $7 million a year, so don't feel bad for the guy. He's doing just fine. As far as the NIL budget of over $5 million, that's awesome for Arkansas. That's great for that program. I don't know exactly what Kentucky's NIL package was, but I promise you it was a lot more than $5 million. So we'll see if he's able to recruit at the clip that he was at Kentucky at Arkansas. I think it'll be a little bit less. He's not going to be able to get the same players that he got at Kentucky, but he'll recruit well, and he's one hell of a recruiter. I'll tell you that. You talk to the man and you believe what he says. So all in all, I think it was a good time to leave. He's going to go down to Arkansas. I really wish it wasn't an SEC school as a Kentucky fan. I don't want to have to face that guy twice a year and then again in the tournament, but it is what it is. Happy for him and his family, and I hope he does really well at Arkansas, honestly.
Which, with all of that being said, leads me to the next topic. Who steps in and fills the job at Kentucky?
Absolutely, man. That's the big question. And I've already seen, obviously Rob Dillingham left for the NBA draft, which wasn't a surprise. I think he would have left even if Cal stayed. But I saw the 5-star guard that they had committed just asked to be released from his letter of intent because he plans to open up his recruitment. And so Kentucky's at a really, really big tipping point right now. They're at a place where they have a bunch of young players like Reed Shepherd, who luckily Reed Shepherd is a legacy Kentucky guy. I don't think he's going anywhere. But they have a lot of young players. They lost Bradshaw to the portal already that are going to be looking at, okay, where's this program going and who's taking it there? Because I'm still regarded as one of the top prospects in college basketball. I could go anywhere I want right now. The portal's open for me because my coach left. I could leave today. And so they have a really big job to hire somebody that's a big name that fits the Kentucky brand, but also they have to get it done quickly. You can't drag your feet on this hire because you're going to lose all kinds of players in the program, and you're going to start losing those recruits that John had committed. You already lost one who was a 5-star. You only have, I think they only had 5 or 6 guys committed because you don't get big recruiting classes in basketball. So you're talking about losing an entire recruiting class. That would set the program back at least 2 to 3 years. So they need to move quick. I've been texting everybody I know down in Lexington, trying to get any kind of information I can. I don't have anybody that's super connected to the program or anything, so I'm not going to break any news or, tell anybody stuff that you can't find on Twitter probably. But I do have a short list of candidates that I've heard they are talking to and looking at. I think number one on their list is Dan Hurley from UConn, who's already come out and said that he has no interest in leaving UConn. But I do have some details about the deal that was offered to him that I'll get into in a minute. And it would be hard to pass that deal up, let me tell you. So Dan Hurley's number one on their list. I know that. They're also number 2 or 1B is Billy Donovan of the Chicago Bulls. Billy was I believe, grad assistant for Rick Pitino at Kentucky. So there's a connection there. He was. I was told when I was a freshman at Kentucky and Billy Gillispie got fired. A few days later, I was told that there was a private jet from Gainesville to Lexington with Billy Donovan on it, and that was going to be the next coach. And then 3 days later, they hired John Calipari. So, Billy's been linked to this job for a long time. The problem with that is, like I said, they don't have time to wait. So with the Bulls right now, they have 3 or 4 games left. I think the regular season ends this Sunday, April 14th, I believe. Right now they're sitting at the 9th spot. So they're going to get into that play-in as long as they, maintain that position, get into the play-in and the playoffs, which hurts that because if you're Billy Donovan, the Bulls aren't going to fire you until after the season if you're getting fired. And realistically, he's probably not going to leave right now when they're going to try to make a run at the playoffs. So, and Kentucky doesn't have 2 or 3 weeks to wait to hire their coach. So Billy Donovan seems like kind of a long shot right now. The other names I've heard are Scott Drew from Baylor. That's another one that they're really high on. They like him. They talked to Jay Wright, who informed them that he was very happy with his broadcast role and he doesn't want to get back into coaching at this time. I've heard other people not even nearly connected to the program at all mention Rick Pitino, but I think they're trying to go younger. I don't think they're going to bring somebody like that back. So right now, I believe they're throwing an absolute Hail Mary at Dan Hurley, which, to give you the details of the contract that I believe was offered to him today or yesterday, they allegedly offered him a deal of 5 to 7 years, $11 million a year, which would make him by far the highest paid coach in college basketball. The next one is Bill Self at Kansas at 9.2. So he'd be making almost $2 million more than the highest paid coach in basketball. It would also make him the second highest paid college coach in the country in any sport, only behind Dabo Swinney at Clemson. He'd be making more than Ryan Day, Kirby Smart, all those guys. You're talking about absolute historic amount of money for a college basketball head coach. So I believe, and word came out when that offer was laid out there, that the brass at Kentucky went to him and offered it to him, told him, I understand you're going to want to talk to UConn, but let him know that they're willing to go higher if they need to, or if UConn matches the 11 million.
So you're telling me that Dan Hurley could possibly be the first college basketball coach to be getting paid more than the football coaches?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe, I don't know what number they're willing to go to, but Kentucky is in a desperate place right now. They are in a desperate place to keep their name in the conversation. They know that they've been able to maintain their reputation and their blue blood status by having John Calipari and getting highly touted recruiting classes and having all this hype every year, but that hasn't led to championships enough. So they've seen what Dan Hurley's done at UConn. They believe he'd be able to do that at Kentucky at an even higher level. I'm not talking about winning national championships every year, back to back, or anything like that. But they believe at Kentucky, you can recruit a higher level athlete than you can at UConn. And he would be able to build a team that isn't just one and dones like Calipari was doing. So they're willing, I wouldn't put it past them to go 13, 14 million a year for him. And it's because they're so desperate to get back to the Final Four and national championships that the money in Kentucky is all going to the basketball program, NIL, everything. But Mark Stoops does a great job with football, and they're content with him doing a great job going 8-4. They don't need him to do any better, and they're not going to pay him anymore or give any more NIL to make it any better. What they want first and foremost is to be the best basketball program in the country year in and year out, or at least one of them. And they haven't been for at least 5 years. So they are going to open up the checkbook and do whatever it takes to get a guy like Dan Hurley to lead the program.
I think Billy Donovan would be a great fit. I think he is. I think Hurley's going to be tough. I mean, he's an East Coast guy. He grew up there. He's from there.
Oh, yeah.
The whole family's there. I think that'd be a tough
I don't
sell.
disagree. That's why I said it's a Hail Mary. But the one thing that can make you leave your roots and leave your family and leave all that is a big old bag of cash. So,
Right.
and I don't know UConn's financial situation at all. They might have just as much money to offer him whatever Kentucky can offer him. I highly doubt that because I didn't know UConn's a much smaller school and a smaller program, smaller fan base. Um, I don't know how they could financially pay Dan Hurley $15 million a year. I don't know. Maybe they can, but I know Kentucky can and will do whatever it takes to get him right now. And if Dan Hurley goes, you know what? I mean, understand this: $11 million a year is triple what he's making right now.
Yeah.
I mean, that's life changing money. That's generation changing money that you're talking about. 7 years, 77 million. That's hard to pass up, man. But maybe Dan Hurley's like, you know what? I'm comfortable making 4 or 5 million a year. I'll get a little raise from UConn, and I don't have to move my family, and I get to stay where I love and all that. And that, if that's the type of person he is, more power to him. I think if they don't get Dan Hurley, I think right now their hope is they either get Dan Hurley or negotiations go long enough with him that they can keep recruits on the line being like, hey, we're going to get Dan Hurley. We're going to get Dan Hurley. And then you don't get him right as Billy Donovan loses the playing game and you can get Billy Donovan. I think those are the two guys they really want. And if all else fails, they'll go get the Baylor coach or somebody else that, is a good coach. What you don't want to
Right.
do is you don't want to fire Tubby Smith and hire Billy Gillespie, right? They did that once. It set the program back. They had to get John Calipari to fix it. So you're losing a legend. So you got to go out and you got to make a splash hire. You can't be one of these programs that takes a flyer on a Seton Hall head coach or some Cinderella story head coach like the Butler coach or something like that. Like you need to go out there and you need to get a big name that people know.
Right. And I also heard Brad Stevens getting floated around.
Yeah, I've heard that. I haven't heard it from anybody in Lexington or anybody at all close to anybody in the program. But I mean, it's a big name. It'll be a cool hire. I don't know if that's something they're really playing with right now. I think that would be down the list if they got rejected by a couple of their big name guys.
Yeah, and we've already put the Rick Pitino thing to bed.
Hey, listen, I would love it if it was Rick Pitino. That'd be awesome. I don't think it'd be great for the program, but it would be fun.
Right. So I guess we'll keep monitoring the Kentucky situation, and we'll keep an eye on the Notre Dame situation, and we will lead with the topic du jour, the top
Yeah.
topic that that was in the description. Nebraska AD Troy Dannon leaves Washington and takes the job at Nebraska.
Yeah.
And
this is a pretty wild story. You and I talked about it a couple days ago, and I went through and kind of researched the timeline of everything, and just the way it all went down. To me, something just doesn't smell right. It just doesn't look right. Something about it. I just don't get a good feeling. So I'll let you kind of tell the story of kind of what you heard and what you've been hearing rumblings of and things like that, and then I'll jump into kind of the timeline and how I think things don't match up and kind of why I'd be a little cautious if I was a Nebraska fan.
So what I was told was whenever they were leading up to the conference tournament, the athletic director, Troy Dannon, approached the kids on the team, and the current coach was still employed at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Troy Dannon approached several players on the team and told them before the conference tournament that they need to enter the transfer portal. It would be in their best interest and would not give them a reason why. One, for me being a parent, I would be highly, highly upset. Two, as a player, why are you as an administrator trying to advise me on getting in the transfer portal and leaving the university? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yep.
for one.
I agree.
Um, and I find it really strange that an athletic director is encouraging kids to leave his university when there's several videos of him at Nebraska now saying there's nowhere else I want to be. No, I want to help student athletes. Telling kids to get in the portal is not helping student athletes. It's not.
No, I agree. I agree completely. So I did some research on all this when you mentioned it because I'm not familiar with the Washington basketball program and really not that familiar with the Nebraska program and anything like that. So when you look at the timeline of things, it's really interesting. I don't know exactly when that conversation with players was had where he was advising them to get into the portal. But when you look at it on March 8th, reports came out that Mike Hopkins, the head coach at Washington, was not going to be retained after the end of the season. He had 1 year left on his deal worth like $3.4 million, and he was going to be let go. This is a guy that had been there 7 years, was a 2-time Pac-12 Coach of the Year, took Washington to the NCAA tournament 2 or 3 times, made a little bit of a run in 2019, won the Pac-12 in 2019, but ever since COVID, things had gone downhill. They hadn't been very consistent. They were 17-15 this year in the season, and they just were kind of a mid team, right? They weren't going to make any noise in the Pac-12 tournament probably. But so March 8th, he gets told, hey, after the season, you're out. I'm assuming sometime between March 8th and March 13th, when they played their Pac-12 tournament game, is when Troy Dannon went to the players, advised them they should look into the portal. And then they play their game against USC on March 13th, which they lose. Obviously, if your athletic director is telling you get in the transfer portal, you're probably not super motivated to go out and play a game. And you know that the coach you're playing for is gone at the end of the year anyways. So just a weird situation that they would put that out there. Troy Dannon had remarks about what a great guy Mike Hopkins was for the university and the program. But as they're moving forward, as they look at joining the Big Ten next fall, they need to do a national search and get a coach that can really, get the program put on the right direction to compete in the Big Ten. So March 13th, they lose to USC in the Pac-12 tournament. 3 days later, reports come out that the athletic director has informed student athletes and informed media that if Washington were to get an NIT bid, they would decline the bid, that they would not be accepting a bid to the NIT, which I find interesting because even Ohio State with an interim coach took the NIT bid. Why would you not want your players to go get postseason experience? Why would you not want them to be rewarded for playing a full season of college basketball? And the NIT, I know it's a second tier tournament, but that used to be how they crown champions in basketball. It's not like it's just some fly by night tournament that a little bit of history there. Obviously, it's not March Madness. It's not the big dance and all that. But I just thought it was weird that he would put it out to the media on March 16th. Hey, we're not going to accept the invite to the NIT. They ended up not even getting invited, probably because they lost that first round game to USC. But then on March 20th, he's announced as the athletic director at Nebraska. So in the span of 12 days, he fired the head coach, told the players to get in the portal, declined a bid to the NIT if he got one, and took a new job. And why is he making? Why do you think he's making those decisions like that? Do you think he randomly got called by Nebraska on March 19th and got offered the job? It sounds to me like he knew he was leaving for Nebraska and was kind of sabotaging the Washington program before he left.
And because if you're the incoming coach and you have that many kids hit the portal, also what I was told was he didn't even go and tell anybody face to face. He just called the SID. They were out on a golf course, is what I was told. They were out on it when they got the call that he was leaving. They were out on a golf course and called somebody and told them that he was leaving for Nebraska and just up and dips. And the
Yeah,
reason why he put it out there was whenever the players were after the conference championship game, the players and everybody around the program, their feeling was, hey, at least we're gonna get some. We're gonna get a couple of games. We'll get it. We may not make the NCAA, but at least we'll get the NIT or something like that.
mhm.
And then he told them they were not going to play in the NIT.
Yeah,
And
which is just wild. And so the his whole time there, just I just can't figure it out. So he was named the athletic director of Washington in October 2023. So he was there for 6 months as AD. That's it. 6 months. He lost DeBoer to Alabama and hired Jed Fish, fired the head basketball coach and left them without a coach, and then bolted to Nebraska. And in the meantime, told basketball players to enter the portal, told them they're not going to the NIT even if they get a bid. I mean, it's just weird. Like, I don't understand it. And my other thing was, as I was reading about it, Nebraska's, talking about what a great hire this is. And they have quotes from Coach Rule and all these guys talking about the kind of guy he is. And he's a competitor and he's a Midwest guy who, knows the Big Ten. And I look at his background. He's never been at a Big Ten school. He's a Midwest guy, I guess, because he was the AD at Northern Iowa for 7 years. I guess that's a Midwest guy. But then he was down in Tulane and out of Washington. Like, I don't get it. It's weird to me.
The whole thing's bizarre, and there's going to be people that when they see this, they're going to be like, "Well, that's the Nebraska fans." I would say I would be worried, and if I was Matt Rule, I would be worried about the type of guy you're working for, because Nebraska's really impatient because they haven't won the Scott Frost debacle, and I think it's really strange and it's really bizarre for a guy that wants to coin himself as a competitor. You're actually worse than a competitor. You're kind of a straight up pussy.
Yeah,
because you're telling kids to get in the portal. You didn't name a coach before you left, and and if I'm the NIT selection committee, why in the hell would you invite a team that says we're not coming?
Yeah, exactly. So even if they were going to get invited, maybe they just didn't get invited because they already knew the answer. It's like if you a girl tells you, hey, like I'm not going with you to prom. Well, shit, I'm not going to ask you then.
Exactly. It's really some of the most bizarre things I've heard in college athletics, and it's not even like Patino that said, we're not coming. That's different whenever the coach says that they're not coming, and especially for the players. Think of the seniors that could have played one more game. You could have had an interim coach go out there and coach the NIT.
Absolutely.
You never know. They could have won some games, and it could look at what the NIT did for Ohio State basketball and Diebler. They made a run, and I believe they have that onward momentum. So
I mean, look at what firing Chris Holtmann did in the middle of the season. It lit a fire under that team. They went out, they beat Purdue. I mean, they went out and they won 8 of 10 games. Like, yeah, you can let the coach go, but put somebody interim in place and let the kids go play. Who cares? You weren't competing for a national championship anyways. Go, if you lose every game, oh well, go play. I mean, it's just to me, there's a lot of red flags there. I don't like the way that he handled his time at Washington at all. And if I'm a guy that's going to be working for him, like Rule, I am very concerned. And I would want to have some conversations with the president about just exactly what happened during his time at Washington. Because to me, the reports that I've heard and the things that I've been told, that's not a guy that really operates within a realm of integrity or within a competitive spirit. That's more of a guy that's self-serving and is doing whatever he wants to a university. And it's not somebody that I mean, the AD is such an important position in so many different ways. And as the head football coach at a university like Nebraska, if I don't believe in the AD that is paying me, that's a problem. I need somebody like Gene Smith that I know. Gene has his faults, but he was really good at a lot of what he did. But I need somebody like Bjork, who I know is out there putting people to the fire, getting shit done for my program. Because in this day and age of college football, it's not good enough to just have a name like Nebraska. You need people out there raising funds. You need people out there putting pressure on conferences, putting pressure on networks, doing the things that you need to do to make your program successful. And if I believe Troy Dannon is only there to serve Troy Dannon, I don't believe he's doing that. I think he's probably out there looking for the next stepping stone. Nebraska's cool, but what if I could be the AD at Michigan? That'd be awesome. Or what if I could go down to the SEC? Like it sounds to me like he's just using places as stepping stones nowadays, and that he's just worried about how can he further his career? What can he do to become the commissioner of the Big Ten? And just I don't like it. If I'm Coach Rule, I'm nervous because what's he going to do to my program? Right? Let's say I go 5-7 this year. Dylan Raiola looks like shit. He's a young freshman making all kinds of mistakes. Well, am I going to get to the end of the year, or is he going to tell Dylan he should transfer?
That's that's the whole point of bringing the whole thing to light. And I don't think people out there know enough about this. Or
no, I did a deep dive. I couldn't find a single report on any of this. And so obviously, it's been kept hush hush in the Washington program, and they don't want to, look bad. But I found reports of them saying they're going to decline the NIT. I found when he fired Mike Hopkins. I found when he left and took the Nebraska job. And you just put that timeline together. Listen, AD searches, they take a while. Nebraska didn't just talk to him after the season and hire him. He's been in talks with Nebraska probably for at least a couple months. And he knew he was leaving to take the Nebraska job. So he didn't give a fuck what he did. He was going to do whatever he wanted, and he was going to make it. I don't know if maybe he had some bad interactions with the coach at Washington. He'd only been there 6 months. So for him to come out here and say he's been a great man, a great person for the program, dude, you weren't even there. You have no idea. He could have been a total asshole to everybody in the program. But the last 6 months, you and him obviously had some beef, and maybe you were trying to ruin the program before you left. I don't know. I don't know what type of person you are if you're going to tell young kids to enter the transfer portal and not allow them to go into postseason play.
Right. And that's the thing that is worrisome, because, you look at the University of Nebraska, they've taken some steps back. They're trying to get back to where they need to be. And this is not conducive for their culture. And I think, like we've said, Coach Rule should be nervous. And if I'm him, I'm not liking a lot of the things that we've brought out tonight. And I think it's a huge red flag. And hopefully enough Nebraska people or people see this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the only thing that would make me feel better as Coach Rule, if I was Coach Rule, obviously you hear things, what we're saying is what we've heard, right? And so the best way to know, or the best way to get a read on a man is sit down, look him eye to eye, and talk to him, right? And so if Rule sat down with him, he explained the situation at Washington to Coach Rule and everything, and Coach Rule believed the conviction in his eyes and thinks that, he's a good man and he's going to do right by me. All right. I'm just saying, from what I've seen from the outside, I'd be a little nervous.
Well, I don't think athletic directors should be meddling in whether a kid should enter the transfer portal, point blank, period. And
no, probably not. That's not that place.
I don't think that you manage the athletic department managing my football roster or my basketball roster. Me as a coach, that's my job, not yours.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
So we have just breached the 1 hour mark. Ready to wrap
Absolutely.
up, Carter?
Before we get out of here, you brought up sporting events going on this weekend. So just want to touch on just a couple minutes. We can just chop it up. But are you UFC fan? You follow UFC?
I haven't even. I do, like, I like to watch John Jones fight. So
Yeah,
so
absolutely. John
basically,
Jones was a goat, but I just started getting into it. I haven't watched a lot. I don't know a lot of the fighters, but I love listening to Dana White and watching. And so I actually this one is probably one that I'll try to watch. It'll be the first one that I've actually watched, but I've heard a lot about Pereira and Hill, which is like the main event, and that one's supposed to be a killer fight. So really excited for that. And obviously Masters weekend, man. What? Give me your pick. Who's winning?
John Rahm.
John Rahm. Okay. Okay. I'm going. I who's winning and who I want to win are two very different people. But I want Tiger. Give me a Tiger win again. Come on. Don't even roll your eyes, man. There's nothing better than Tiger Woods at the top. Nothing. It's the greatest thing.
No, I'm. I would. I would. The reason why I want Rahm to win is because he's a live golf guy, and I think the live is so much better than the PGA Tour.
Bro, we might have to end. I can't.
It's so much better.
How? Because they are on the CW and get 12 people watching and they play 54 holes of team golf? Like, what? No, get out of here.
Come
Live is
on.
trash. Live is
Come on.
trash. Live was a money grab and they're trying to combine with the PGA because they got what they wanted out of it. They're trying to whitewash their money and, that's fine. Live was never meant to actually be popular because it never was going to be. It's a terrible
Hey,
format.
I don't know much about golf, but I just, I was hearing some PGA love there, so I'm gonna go live golf. Let's have a live golfer win it. Put that green jacket
Yeah,
on.
well, give it to Kepka then, I guess. But I mean, yeah, you haven't. I guarantee you haven't watched a single live tournament.
That's not the point, Carter. That is not the
Exactly.
point.
It's better. It's better. Hasn't even watched it. No, live golf is garbage. But I'm glad that hopefully we're done with that soon. I know they were going to combine forces and then it went to court and got shut down. I don't know. Whatever. Live golf to me was just how much money can we throw at these guys to prove that they don't give a fuck about golf? They care about money, which they did. And now the PGA purses are higher. It's doing everything that it was meant to do, which is good. But no, Tiger Woods is the best thing to happen to golf ever. And his run in the late 90s, early 2000s is the most dominant run of any individual athlete ever. So I would love to see him win. I doubt he has anything left in the tank to do it. But I think Scotty Scheffler will probably end up winning it. He's been hot as hell, and I think he's got the game to do it. If his putter's on, if he can putt, he'll win. His biggest thing is he 2 and 3 putts a lot and still finishes towards the top somehow. But no, it'll be exciting. The Masters is one of my favorite weekends, man. I can't wait for it to start tomorrow. I'm going to be locked in. Tiger tees off at 1:24 and then again at 10:18 on Friday. So we're going to be at Yogi's watching Tiger.
This is
I'll wear my Sunday red. Don't worry.
oh yeah, yeah. I've seen I know somebody that's actually going to the Masters. Tyler Siskey is going.
Oh, nice.
He's going on Saturday. He's going to be out there rooting for Sergio Garcia.
Oh God, I hate that guy. I can't
But
stand Sergio.
I've seen a lot of picks. The crazy money people that are trying to make tons of money are betting DeChambeau to win the Masters. I don't
If you like throwing money away, you can do that.
I don't.
So side note, and I love Ricky Fowler. I just think he's awesome, and he's never won a major, and I'd love to see him win one. But also Paige Spearnack. I don't know if you know who that is.
Mm-mm.
Google her. You'll like what you see. But she's a golf girl, let's call her. But she came out and said if Ricky wins, she'll put out some exclusive content. So wouldn't mind seeing Ricky win. That would be cool. But no, I love the Masters is the best tournament all year. I love that we kick off the year with it, kick off spring with it. And then, it's Augusta is Tiger's course, man. He's going to go out there. He's going to make the cut because he's currently tied for the most consecutive major cut or Masters cuts made with Freddie Couples. So even if they have to move the cut line to whatever Tiger's at, they're not going to let him miss the cut. So he'll be playing Saturday.
Yeah, I don't watch too much golf, but
I watch the majors, and then every now and then, if I'm bored on a Sunday or whatever, I'll catch the final round of something else. But I watch all the majors. The Masters, PGA, U.S. Open. I guess it's called the Open Championship now, but I used to know it as the British Open.
Gotcha. Well, I guess
Absolutely,
that
man.
that is an action-packed weekend. I will be seeing you on Friday morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, anybody who listens between now and Friday, man, come if you're in Columbus or if you're coming to Columbus for the spring game, come out Friday, 11 a.m. Yogi's on Hard Road in Dublin. Duke and I will be there along with a couple other people that we know that watch the show. We'll be hanging out, watching the Menace to Sports live show with Zach and Chris. Just having some drinks, enjoying the beautiful weather, hopefully, and just getting ready for the spring game Saturday. I mean, it's spring game, Masters, UFC, all the good things going on this weekend. So come hang out with us.
And with that being said, everybody hit the like and subscribe and share this with somebody.
Hey, yeah, absolutely. As they say, be a friend, tell a friend. Trying to get this thing going. We're real active on TikTok, so follow us on TikTok and all that stuff. You get to see clips if you miss a show and things like that. But yeah, absolutely, man. Appreciate you having me on again and getting in here, talking it up, talking a little Kentucky basketball and Notre Dame football. Those are always topics I enjoy.
All right. With that being said, you guys have a good evening.